If the West lost access to one country in Africa tomorrow, your next electric car could cost $10,000 more. Your smartphone could become harder to buy, and production of advanced fighter jets could quietly slow down. Not because of oil, not because of lithium, but because of a metal most people never think about: cobalt. Right now, around 70% of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. But here's the real problem. Chinese companies control most of those industrial mines, and China refines nearly 80% of global cobalt supply. Which raises a dangerous question. If China doesn't just mine cobalt, but controls the refining, transport routes, and export pipelines, who really controls the future of electric cars, batteries, and modern warfare? Because in 2026, something unusual is happening. The United States and Europe are suddenly pouring billions of dollars into a railway across Central Africa, in a region they largely ignored for decades. Why? Because this isn't just infrastructure. It's a race to break a monopoly, and it's called the Lobito Corridor. But before we understand why this railway matters, we need to understand why cobalt matters. Because cobalt is invisible. You don't see or hear it, but it's quietly holding the modern world together. Inside electric vehicles, cobalt stabilizes batteries. It prevents overheating and improves lifespan, allowing EVs to travel hundreds of miles. Without cobalt, EVs don't just get more expensive, they become less useful. But the impact goes far beyond cars. Cobalt is also used in high-performance alloys and magnets, critical for advanced military electronics, which means cobalt isn't just powering the energy transition, it's powering national security. And demand is only accelerating. As the world electrifies, demand for cobalt is expected to multiply several times by 2040. So demand is exploding. Supply is concentrated and control is narrowing. But how did China get this far ahead? Because you can't just dig cobalt out of the ground and put it into a battery. It must be refined in high-purity chemicals through complex industrial processes. And this is where China built its advantage. Over the past 2 decades, Beijing invested heavily in refining infrastructure, what analysts sometimes call a chemical cathedral, a network of processing plants, chemical engineers, and supply chains built quietly over time. While Western companies outsourced refining, China built it, which creates a dangerous reality. Even if the West mines cobalt, it still often must send it to China to be refined. And replicating that capacity isn't easy. It took China 20 years. For the West to catch up, they don't just need the rocks, they need to rebuild 2 decades of industrial chemistry. Now, the railway is the first step, but refining is the final boss. And China didn't just build refineries, they bought the mines. The turning point came in 2016. That's when a US company sold one of the world's richest cobalt deposits, the Tengke-Fungurume mine, to China Molybdenum for $2.6 billion. In one move, the keys to the future were handed over. Because Tengke-Fungurume wasn't just another mine, it was one of the richest cobalt reserves on Earth. And it wasn't the only acquisition. Chinese firms like Zijin Mining and Huayu Cobalt followed, buying mines, expanding processing, and building transport networks. The result? China didn't just buy cobalt, they built an ecosystem. Mining, refining, transport, financing. Every step. It created something rare in geopolitics, an end-to-end supply chain. And that's when alarm bells started ringing. Because if China controls the mines, the refineries, and the routes, then a single disruption could quietly slow the global energy transition. Or worse. So, how does the West break that control? Well, in 2026, the silence is ending. The West isn't just sending diplomats anymore, they're sending engineers. They're building the Lobito Corridor. The Lobito Corridor is a railway stretching from Angola's Atlantic coast through the mining regions of the Congo and into Zambia. Backed by the US, Europe and G7 partners, the project aims to redirect minerals west, away from China. Right now, most cobalt flows east. The Lobito Corridor flips that direction. Africa to Atlantic to Western markets. A supply chain U-turn. And the time savings are dramatic. Transport that once took weeks could take days. But this isn't just about speed. It's about transparency. Right now, a portion of global cobalt is mined in informal, unregulated conditions, often called blind supply, which creates both ethical and political risk. By controlling the tracks, the West is trying to build something new, a green pipeline, a route where cobalt can be traced, audited, and verified, ensuring the metal in your electric car doesn't come with a human rights controversy attached. This isn't just a race for minerals, it's a race for the high ground. But China isn't just watching. They've launched a countermove. While the West builds westward, China is investing heavily in the Tazara Railway, linking Central African minerals to ports on the Indian Ocean. 2 railways, 2 directions, 1 continent. It's a literal race of the tracks, and whoever wins controls the flow. Because this isn't just about cobalt. These routes unlock copper, lithium, and other critical minerals buried across Central Africa, a multi-resource pipeline. So why is the West suddenly building railways across Africa? Because the world is entering a new kind of competition. Not for land, not for ideology, but for supply chains. And in 2026, the battle for global power isn't being fought with tanks. It's being fought with infrastructure. Railways, ports, processing plants, invisible systems that shape the future. If you're starting to see how these hidden choke points control the world, subscribe, because we're mapping the 2026 resource race, one metal at a time. Indonesia is using nickel to influence EV prices, and now Central Africa is becoming the cobalt battlefield. Because the future of global power isn't decided by who has resources. It's decided by who controls the route. Because cobalt might control the batteries, but nickel controls the price.